All right. So I'm going to go ahead and kick off the September 18th, 2023 Caroline County Broadband Advisory Committee meeting. First order of business before we get into the agenda, which is already up on the screen, is we do not have a quorum tonight with some conflicts of schedules. So because there's myself and David and Mr. Thomas is here, we're going to make this an informational meeting only. We don't have really anything to go over, or I'm sorry, any business to vote on. So this shouldn't be a problem, but just wanted to make everybody aware of that up front, that due to the lack of quorum, that there would not be any voting done tonight on anything. With that being said, I guess we can, are there any amendments to the agenda that we have up here?
No, sir. I think we're good to go.
All right. So we'll go ahead and rock forward. Again, the meeting minutes. If you have any questions, you can watch the YouTube video, which is available online, and get back to that. I think we have the last probably almost 2 years worth of videos out there ever since we started live streaming. So feel free to go back and watch those. Those will act as our minutes. We'll dive directly into old business. David, do you want to update us on the railroad crossing?
Yes, sir. All the paperwork and agreements have been signed by CSX and Caroline County. So now the county is working towards releasing an RFP for the actual work. The estimated cost for all 4 crossings, rough estimate at this point, somewhere in a neighborhood of about $100,000 to do the 4 crossings. And so that'll be addressed once we get pricing, and it'll be addressed at a board meeting. But other than that, the long part of the process is done. The rest of it should go fairly quick. Once a contractor is selected, they coordinate with CSX to do the actual construction, and CSX will have an inspector out on site during the work. So that's where we're at right now. We're working through contractor selection.
July 10th, 7 here. Opening prayer with Stop President William Rock. The reading of the minutes is by Secretary Thomas Ashcroft Williams. Minutes were moved second by Reverend Joy Carter Minor and
okay. Yeah. The one thing I would say about that, David, that I had a question on, in order to bring that in front of the board, is that something that you and I can just work out between us to figure out a time that we can meet and bring it up and put it on the agenda?
The Department of Public Works will be handling the contractor selection.
So, okay.
You know, at that point, because if you remember back when we were directed to do this by the board went ahead and directed Public Works and the Department of Public Works to establish 4 railroad crossings at strategic sites that were pre-selected. So it's kind of in their ballpark, unless if anything changes, I will let you know, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
Even better. All right. Anybody else have any questions on that? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and move forward. Starlink updates. I'm hoping to have a better update next month. I'm using the Wayback Machine to go back and look at what the coverage is, so that way we can show how things have progressed over the past past year, I guess you could say. Starlink coverage has been expanding in Virginia. Currently, there are no open cells. There's no real difference that I can tell between last month's map and this one. But I have had a lot of people calling me saying their number has come up and they've been chosen and they're shipping out the equipment to them. I think in the past month, I've had 8 people call me and say, hey, we were on there for Starlink for the past 8-9 months. on the waiting list, and we're starting to, they were getting their equipment. And that was a story that I heard yesterday from Jacobus, who is the co-chair on the committee. Somebody that he knows had ordered Starlink about 9 months ago and got the email and got Starlink shipped out to him. So it's no longer the 2-year wait game that we're seeing. And again, as the committee has always stated, to this point, from this point backwards, and we will continue to state, Starlink is what we consider a good alternative at this point, or a holding spot for the overall project. If you have a broadband need that you need broadband right now, this should get you through or get you by based on your location and tree coverage and so forth, so on, until we can get the project, the 2023 VATI project complete. So any update or anybody have any questions on the Starlink?
Jason, have we heard from anybody, if, for example, if I were to go on Starlink right now and order one, have we heard from anyone who's ordering right now? How long it's taken? Are they starting to fill orders live, or is the only way you can still get it through the RV package?
RV is the only way that you can get it now, like within 2 weeks. And there was a gentleman that I spoke with last week, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, that did it that way and got his within 2 weeks, and had it set up and running. Now, granted, he's paying the RV price. The equipment is the same price, but the service is actually $150 instead of $120. So that is the difference to that. But they posted on Facebook that they couldn't believe they were in the 21st century, and they now have internet and they can do whatever they needed to do. They're streaming television, so forth, so on. So they're extremely happy. But it is about 2 weeks if you do the RV, and about, I'm guessing the last thing that I heard was about 8 to 9 months. That somebody was able to get it by doing just the standard package. But again, we're starting to see more and more people get it, so that's at least good. Hopefully by next month, we can start seeing more of those cells get colored in with that light blue color instead of the dark blue color.
Yeah, and I will say that even at $150 per month, that's comparable to Directway and HughesNet pricing, and the services is much better. So while 150 may sound high, it's not that far out of what's competing with it. And again, it's just completely different. You can't live stream or Zoom over HughesNet very well. If you're lucky, you might be able to get by with it, but most people complain that it does not work.
And I'm going to nerd out for 1 second, so I apologize. But I've been doing a bunch of research on comparative between the two. And this was something really good that, after really digging into the information, that really stood out to me. So the low Earth orbit versus the Hughes Directway, which is geosynchronous orbit. The difference between those is low Earth orbit is around 340 to 350 miles above the Earth. Sounds like a long distance. As the crow flies, that's going to be basically from Caroline County to Myrtle Beach, is around 350 miles, or 300 to 350 miles from as the crow flies, not following regular roads, but straight down, is about 350 miles. Geosynchronous orbit is 22,000 miles. And that is where the Hughes Directway, DirecTV, Hughes Directway, Viasat, all of those sit. Now, if you really want to, in comparison, imagine sending an email or a carrier pigeon from Caroline County to Myrtle Beach versus a carrier pigeon all the way around the circumference of the Earth. The data is going to get there quicker. And when you're using the internet over satellite, you have to make that trip 4 times. You have to send it up to the satellite has to send it back down to Earth, goes out to the internet, pulls the information back, and then sends it back up to the satellite, back down to you. So you're looking at roughly, for a geosynchronous orbit, around 1,300 miles to 1,400 miles round trip, total round trip, versus 88,000 miles round trip. So the total round trip is like sending a carrier pigeon from here to California versus sending it 4 times around the circumference of the Earth. So you can see the comparison based on the quickness of the data, and that's how you can actually get that speed and achieve things like right now, I'm able to Zoom a telephone call or stream television. And because there are so many of these satellites, they're able to actually house more data, quicker data, and more people because they're connected to a group of people is connected to a single satellite that's flying past them versus everybody pointing at one satellite and having to split that across everybody. So I know I nerded out, I apologize, but that kind of gives a visual of why we are saying that this is a good intermediate step until we can get the final solution in place.
And I will say, to stay with the nerd theme, the average ping time, so the time it takes to send a message through Starlink is 60 milliseconds or less. And the ping times that I would get on HughesNet Directway was anywhere from 800 milliseconds to 1,500 milliseconds. So, and a millisecond doesn't sound like a long time, but again, when you multiply that times 3 or 4 and add, it ends up being a hesitation. So you type a website in on Starlink, 60 milliseconds up, down to the site, back to you, back to your computer, boom, it loads fast. HughesNet is probably, can be faster actual download, but the problem is the hesitation that it takes to send that message, request the site then respond and go back through the system back down to your computer. So that hesitation makes it seem like it's slower, but I have seen Hughes Directway that if you were downloading a large file and you were during the limited hours that you could actually download that without penalty, that Hughes Direct would actually probably outrun Starlink on a straight file download. But all in all, for everyday use, this committee still stands behind Starlink as a temporary solution. Some of the other, technologies that are out there, some of the hotspots, whole house internet through some of the cell providers, some of those that they're advertising 5G, 4G. So there's a lot of confusion there. Just know that if you're using a hotspot, you're using shared bandwidth with everything else. And as those cell sites get congested or loaded up, they divide that bandwidth out between all the users. So where any of them may be able to advertise really fast speeds, the truth is when they get loaded down, and we saw this when COVID first hit, during the times where students were on, schools were on, businesses were open and using it, it really slowed down. So just know that if you get a hot spot, even if you have a good signal, and I've seen situations where the signal strength to the tower is really good. I've seen situations where my connection to a 5G tower was really good, but yet the speeds are okay at best. So just know that you can live right next to a tower, but if 500 or 1,000 people are hitting that same tower at the same time, it's going to be slow, no matter how close you are. So that is another option. While we're talking about this, Jason, we're starting to get some questions on a regular basis now to the broadband inquiries that I work with on a regular basis. And the question always is, I'm hearing a lot that internet's coming. I've been on this wait list. They're getting ready to ship me my Starlink. Should I order it or should I wait? And that's going to be an individual question. Depends on how bad your need is. Just know that Starlink, as far as I know, you still buy the equipment up front. You don't rent it, you don't lease it, and you pay month to month. So if you used it for 6 months, you could cancel without an early termination fee. You do have the equipment. You've already paid for that. I don't know if there's a reseller market available. So you're looking at probably, what is it, Jason, around $600 for the equipment?
$600 for the equipment, and on a residential is 120, 150 as of this time for RV. The one thing that I can say that my plan is, this is just my individual plan, and this is my future going forward. So take it with a grain of salt. Is I'm going to leave my Starlink dish up. So once broadband, the 2023 grant gets completed, I'm still going to leave my Starlink dish up. I'm actually going to move my dish over to an RV plan, which allows you to basically pause your service while it's not in use. Leave everything powered up, leave everything hooked up, so that way it still gets the updates it needs. But then that way, if there's ever an issue, let's say, a line gets dug up or cut, or there's a hurricane that comes through and it damages some of the fiber lines or what have you, I can always go back to Starlink and reactivate it. While my service is paused, you don't get charged for it. So that way you can actually still leave it there and have it as a backup. So you own the dish at that point. You own you have everything all ready to go. And if you had to flip back over because there's an immediate need, again, crisis that, it's going to be weeks before service comes back or something like that, you always have a backup plan. So that's going to be the reason I already own the equipment. So there's no real need to worry about and taking it down and putting it in my attic of my house or trying to resell it. It's already up there. I'm just going to leave it as a backup plan for myself. Again, that's just my plan. So it could be overkill, but I'd rather plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah, and I guess that's why I said it's kind of an individual choice that you have to make. If internet is something that you have to have for your job, your business, and you just cannot survive without it, then you figure the cost of the equipment is $600. Add that to 6 months or a year before really, we start seeing a few connections. Is it that important? And that's just a decision that you would, you and your family would have to make. But I do know if you're on the wait list and you get a confirmation telling you that they're going to ship, you want to think about it good before you cancel.
Right.
But again, we can't tell you yes, you definitely need to do it because, some people may get their connection faster than others. So it's just a decision that you have to make individually.
Right. Okay.
So moving on to VATI 2021 updates.
Now that we've finished nerding out, we can move to VATI 2021.
So VATI 2021, of course, the majority of the customers that have placed orders, those orders have been filled. The number of orders is slowing down. We want to remind everybody that if you're in that VATI 2021 area or some other area that's serviced either by Comcast or BreezeLine, or even the wireless providers, you still have that. You still have that ACP, the Affordable Connectivity Program, where you can get the $30 a month credit on your broadband. So if you live in a 2021 area where the new internet is available to you, they have $30 packages with, and if you have a child that's in Caroline County Public Schools, you qualify for the ACP. Your internet could be low cost or no cost. We do have customers out in Westmoreland and some of the other areas that were in the VATI 2021 areas that order that low-end package, the $30 package. They now have internet, and they're paying $2 to $3, I think, is what it costs you above what the subsidy is. So again, if you have a child, Caroline County Public Schools, you qualify for ACP. If you're using BreezeLine, Comcast, or some of the wireless providers, check with them to see if they participate. And if they do, don't forget. And we do have a video that Mr. Jacobus spent some time going in very fine detail how to get that credit. So if you're in 21, take advantage of ACP and get connected. Moving on to 23, Jason. VATI 2023. So as of last Tuesday, all documents were submitted to DHCD. We had until Thursday. There was quite a few documents for each of the two providers that had to be submitted. The last of the documents went in on Tuesday. Some of the documents were complete about 2 weeks earlier than that. They were all submitted to DHCD and uploaded to CAMS, and DHCD has accepted them and acknowledged the fact that we've uploaded all the documents that we need to and answered all of their questions. So at this point, we're just in a waiting period from DHCD until the actual contracts are released. Those contracts will be between Caroline County and DHCD. We already have the MOUs or Memorandum of Understanding with the providers, BreezeLine and Verizon. All of those are complete and been signed and submitted. So what we're waiting on now is a contract between DHCD and Caroline County for each of the two providers. Once they are finalized and signed by both parties, then there will be an official start work that'll be issued. Now, that being said, both providers were already had prior authorization issued by DHCD, so they can start walkout design and engineering. Jason, I think you got something to add to that.
Yes, I do. I had to find the unmute button for me. So I actually came home from work today, and somebody that was on my road came up and approached me and said that BreezeLine had been walking around. They had parked up at the Frog Level Market, right across from the Frog Level Volunteer Fire Department, and they were actually actively looking at and walking out different areas. They ended up walking through the woods from the market back over to our area, and we're walking around the roads back in here with clipboards and so forth, so on. And they were from BreezeLine or working with BreezeLine. So we just want people to be aware of that if you see people walking around, and BreezeLine is actively walking around and doing walkouts, taking measurements, trying to figure out the best plan to get the service installed and where to bring in different service lines. So just be aware of that. And I believe, David, you said you'd heard or had also heard of something like that?
Yeah, so of course the RDOF area, which is again basically east of Route 301 to Central Point passing area, that has been walked out and completed. The walkout's complete there. BreezeLine issued RFPs, they were awarded, and design walkout engineering has started for the remainder of 2023 projects. So you will be seeing Breeze Line people in your neighborhoods. If you're east of 95, you will see these workers. Most of the time they will be near utility lines because that's what they use. A lot of what they're doing is measuring the height of the poles and just, taking notes and information so they know which poles have to be improved to get them high enough for their cable to meet the minimum clearance. So a lot of very detailed design is going on now. And that process will go fairly quick because I understand they've got large groups walking the Valley 2023 area, and that's Breeze Line. Verizon has already started some design and engineering. I'm not sure if they're doing walkouts as of yet, but as this process progresses, I'll make sure to stay in close contact with both Breeze Line and Verizon. And if we can get more details about particular areas, we will let you know. Otherwise, just know that the entire county's got to be done. So it could be anywhere. If you see someone, the vehicle should be marked as an authorized contractor for Breeze Line or Verizon. And if not, then question. But just know that you will see people in, on, and around the right-of-ways for the power lines, because that's generally where at least Breeze Line will be following those. Verizon probably as much following telephone lines or existing fiber that they already have in the ground to service their cell towers. So anywhere in the county from here on out, you could see contractors out there walking and doing that work. So that's kind of where we're at. Joey joined the meeting. Joey, we acknowledged at the beginning of the meeting that we did not have a quorum, so this would just be an informational meeting. So we're just going through the updates and trying to get the information out that we can. And that we're not able to really conduct any business as far as voting on anything, but we didn't have anything scheduled anyway. So more or less, we're just kind of like a podcast. So if you have anything that you want to add, feel free to jump in there.
All right, I will. Sure. Thank you.
So David, does that mean we need to change this from Caroline County Broadband Advisory Committee meeting to podcast now?
Well, we're kind of following the podcast format more so. We don't have any motions. That's kind of where we're at in 23. So just know that they are working. Once design and engineering is complete, then at some point we may get a little bit of an update as to where they're going to be working. However, just know that those companies will, once the design and engineering is complete, they will plan where they start based on where they have a supply. For example, it wouldn't make sense to jump into the middle of a service area and build an area out if they don't have a backbone to feed it. So it's going to be kind of up to them, and they're going to do it the way that they can get to it as quickly as possible. We also, in 21, what we noticed was that across the 4 counties that were in the project area, basically they were working in all 4 counties pretty much at the same time. However, the areas didn't get released until that whole portion of the project or that project area was complete, tested, and then turned over to sales. The difference, so what we would see in Caroline is we would see crews working on one project area, and know that the Caroline project was broken up into about 4 separate project areas. So we may have a crew in one of those 4 areas working, but nothing would get released until the entire county was, or 2 or 3 of those projects together were done, and then it would be tested and released. This time, because of the size and the scope of the project, their intentions are to light up as much fiber as they can while they're going along. So they may do 25 houses in a stretch and get those tested, certified, and then turned over to sales as they move on to the next. So to us, it looks a lot different because now we're seeing pieces being released in our county as they go along. Whereas before, with it being 4 counties, it looked like, you know, a lot more construction was being completed before it was released. So just know that as soon as they start construction, it could be a very short period of time before they start actually releasing addresses. So we'll try to keep. We've already started our weekly meetings with both partners. So as we get more details, we'll be sure to let you know via this format. We would ask the public, if you have questions, the broadband inquiry forum is a good place to get information from us, as well as information released at this meeting. It's oftentimes more accurate. Well, that's what we want to do. We want to be the point where people can come to get accurate, up-to-date information, as opposed to trying to rely on social media, which quite often is inaccurate. So if you have any questions, broadband inquiry form located on the Caroline County website. Broadband Advisory Committee next meeting is October the 16th. Feel free to join in. And just also look for maybe some providers at some of your upcoming community events as well. I think we completed the continued annual review of the plan for universal coverage. So
yeah, that was my fault. I forgot to take that off when we worked on this, and I didn't catch it until we were halfway through, and we'd already amended the agenda, so I couldn't take it off. So I apologize for that.
So that is complete. We have nothing else new to report there.
Correct.
We'll get a copy of the updated universal coverage plan up on the website. Basically, the plan for universal coverage up until the last revision was how we were going to get providers to cover the entire county. Now that we have those providers, we've updated the plan a little bit with some detail as to which provider in which area. So just keep an eye out for that. And that's another very good source of very accurate information about the broadband expansion effort that's taken place with the continued support of the Board of Supervisors to make all this happen. So, and the cooperation with 2 really good partners that, I shouldn't say partners, providers that are working with us to get the job done.
Yep. All right. So does anybody have any new business?
Joe, you got anything to add?
No, I do not.
All right. Then we'll go ahead and the next meeting will be October 16th, 2023 at 7 p.m. And we'll do that, I guess, Zoom meeting still. We don't need to do an in-person one, do we, David?
Not at this point. And if that was a decision that we wanted to discuss, we should probably do it when we had a quorum. Okay. So for now, I think we stick with the same meeting time and format that we've been using all along. And as we get a larger group and schedules don't conflict, we can discuss. I know that there's some desire to have in-person meetings at least occasionally. So, that's something we can definitely discuss. But as for now, I think we stick with the standard format.
All right. Anything else? All right. Should we go ahead and adjourn?
If we can't vote on anything, do we have a motion to adjourn? Or do we just call it a wrap?
I think we just call it a wrap. We'll stick with the podcast tonight. So, all right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And we will see everybody on October 16th, same time. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you. Y'all have a good evening. Have a good week.